How long can Alec Marsh stay this consistent as the Royals' number 5 starter? We'll talk about it in this edition of Locked On Royals.
You are Locked On Royals, your daily Kansas City Royals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are tuned into Locked On Royals on the Locked On Podcast Network. I am your host, Jack Johnson, and you can find me on Twitter or X at JohnnyJ_15. That's at JOHNYJ_15. You also can catch us on wherever you get your podcast. That can be Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, Google Podcast. We're on Odyssey, and we're on YouTube. Just be sure to hit the follow button and subscribe. Today's show is brought to you by Game Time. If you're thinking about going out to Kauffman Stadium this weekend, you might as well purchase your tickets on Game Time. It's where I go to buy my tickets. Great deals, whether you're going by yourself or with a group of people. So Game Time is the app you need to use when buying tickets. Questions and comments can always be left on YouTube or my Twitter handle at JohnnyJ_15. If you are a first-time listener and you want to know a little bit more about me, I'm based here in Kansas City. I work at Sports Radio 810 WHB. I do some producing, some co-hosting, and some just hosting in general. So stay pretty busy in the sports world, but when you come to this podcast, when you click on this link, you know that you are getting 30 straight minutes of Royals baseball. And even though tonight the Royals don't have a game, it feels a much better, I guess, from a time standpoint for me today. To do this podcast episode, it feels a lot more refreshing. If you've been following along during the West Coast road trip, I think every episode that I've put up has been past midnight. There have been some late hour episodes that we've been doing. And I'm glad that after work today, I was able to come back and do an episode, not feel rushed to get it out before the game. And then we're going to have our typical programming tomorrow with our Mailbag Friday. Going to get that out in the morning, so I won't have to worry about it. And then I won't have an episode until the next or 2 Mondays from then, because we won't have any episode all of next week. So that following Monday is when we'll be back with another edition of Locked On Royals. But for tonight, it's a good time to just get up to date with where everything stands. We'll have a little series preview with the Oakland Athletics. We'll talk about a minor league arm that is thriving in Omaha. And I believe that he doesn't need to be in Omaha much longer. But to kick off tonight's show, I want to talk about Alec Marsh. And I would love to go back in time if I had the time and I had the desire to do it, because I always enjoy a little bit of proving myself wrong. At times, I have a little bit of fun when I can look back at some takes that I had. I poked fun at myself last night going over MJ Melendez. I would poke fun at myself for thinking Hunter Renfroe could have a great bounce back season. A couple different things. But one that I might have been way too confident about was the Royals' 5th starter spot going into spring training. And even when I was down and surprised, I got this sense that Jordan Lyles was going to be the guy, but that just wasn't the case. It was open competition, and Alec Marsh won that job in surprise and has completely rolled with it going into the regular season. And yesterday, he's right now pitching as well as getting more swings and misses than anybody else that was starting yesterday. He had 19 against the Angels in Anaheim in his first start coming off the injured list, and then he had 16 the other day against the Seattle Mariners. And even though I do not believe that Alec Marsh is a 2.35 ERA guy, I don't believe he's a below league average whip pitcher. Look, he's the 5 starter. I mean, anything that you get sub 5 for the ERA, I think you take from your 5th starter. And Alec Marsh right now is pitching like a number 3. I mean, I think the great question, I'd love to hear some feedback on this. Do you trust Brady Singer or Alec Marsh more when they take the bump right now? And maybe a little bit of that is a prisoner of the moment situation, because Brady Singer didn't look good last time out, and Alec Marsh looked as good as you could for 5 innings. He still threw 100 and some pitches in the same way Brady Singer did, but 1 earned run to 4 earned runs, you can see the difference that is. But the question that I think we all need to be asking is, how long can this go? How sustainable is it? Because Alec Marsh was not a elite top 10 prospect in baseball. He was not dominating and shoving in AAA before the Royals called him up last year. And there's still aspects to his game that you go, that could be an issue. That could be problematic. But through these first 8 or 9 starts, you have to wonder which mark are you going to use? Which benchmark are you going to use for deciding just how good or how bad Alec Marsh is going to be in 2024? For me, I think at 15 starts, you have a pretty good feel as to what your guy is going to give you in a 162 game season. Because you think roughly 30 starts is the goal. It's not always going to get to that point, but half of that, I think I know what a pitcher is going to look like. And Alec Marsh is halfway, or at least a little over halfway to 15 starts. And he missed a few from getting hit by a line drive on his forearm. I think we've seen a velocity uptick over the last 2 starts. It hasn't allowed him to work deeper into games, but honestly, I would take the high velo and the pure stuff for 5 innings than, maybe trying to win the game by inducing soft contact. Because I just think Alec Marsh's stuff plays a little bit better as a swing and miss pitcher than it does playing into contact. Now, he's not a 10 or 12 or 13 K per 9 guy. I mean, he's only got, I think, 31 strikeouts and 37 innings. So he's still, below 9 strikeouts per 9, which I think once you get to that territory, you're kind of classified as a strikeout pitcher, at least on the lesser end of it. You get to double digits, you absolutely are a strikeout type of pitcher. But I don't know. I think with Alec Marsh's stuff, the sinker that can run it between 93 and 95, the 4-seam, we've seen hit 96 and 97 consistently in these last 2 starts. I wonder if that might be the plan of attack for 5 innings, go air it out a little bit. Now, I think Alec Marsh himself would want to work into the 6th inning and want to work into the 7th inning. Every pitcher does. But honestly, starts like Wednesday, starts like last Friday in Anaheim, that I could live with Alec Marsh. And is he going to be somebody that takes the bump every 5th day and gets 18, 19, 20 swings and misses? I wouldn't count on it. I would think that guys like Cole Reagans and even, Michael Wacha can be the big swing and miss pitchers. Even over Seth Lugo. I think Seth Lugo is the best at inducing soft contact, and Cole Reagans and Michael Wacha are the best at getting that swing and miss because of their, great power stuff of a certain pitch. Now, let me walk that back a little bit because somebody's going to go, well, Seth Lugo just had 12 strikeouts and no walks. I do think he's got that swing and miss to his game. I really, really do. But also, I take into account that what Seth Lugo has been traditionally good at, inducing that soft contact. That curveball, just like Michael Wacha's changeup, is going to get a lot of swing and miss. But Lugo, to me, is not somebody that's going to get 15 to 20 swings and misses unless he's got that otherworldly type of outing when he's got 12 strikeouts and no walks. But to me, the pure power stuff, wow, that is pretty violent. It goes Cole Reagans for me, and then, man, maybe you do look to an Alec Marsh. Alec Marsh has some pretty violent stuff when it's working. I think that he can be one of those guys that can take it maybe as far as 15 to 20 starts, where you are going to have that off night in the same way Cole Reagans has had an off night, same way Michael Wacha has, same way Brady Singer has. I mean, really, Seth Lugo's the only guy that hasn't had a really bad start where you go, there were no positives there. His one non-quality start was against Baltimore, and that's one of the best lineups in baseball. Alec Marsh is going to have a bad start at some point. We know that is the case. I don't see Alec Marsh having a sub-3 ERA. He throws 170, 180 innings. But the ceiling, the upside, is already starting to intrigue me. Because I've looked at some of these outings and I went, maybe this is when he falls back down to earth. Toronto, I thought. Baltimore, again. He gave up 1 run to Baltimore in the 2 starts that he faced him. That, to me, was the light bulb moment. He really can be a above average starter in this rotation. And to get that from your 5th guy, that is really impressive stuff. Really, really impressive stuff. I don't know what he's going to look like against Detroit, but it's another lineup I think that he matches up very well with. And then you're inching closer to 10 starts. You feel like you're 33% of the season, or through 33% of the season, in terms of how many times you're going to climb the bump. I mean, right now, as long as the Royals stay healthy, these are the 5 guys. And I think the reason we all feel so confident is because of what Alec Marsh has provided as the 5th guy. I mean, obviously you feel good about Reagan's, Lugo, and the way Walker looked last time out, the way Singer has. But to have that as your 5 starter, that gives you so much more security moving throughout the season. Okay, we're going to take our first break of the show. When we come back, I think the bullpen needs a little bit of reinforcement, and I don't think they have to look that far. Just go down to Omaha and pick the reliever that's leading the team in strikeouts, and he's made only 1 start this season. We'll talk about him next on Locked On Royals. You are tuned into Locked On Royals on the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jack Johnson, and you can find me on Twitter or X at JohnnyJ_15. Before we move on to our next segment, let's give a shout out to the title sponsor today in Game Time. Now, if you're thinking about going out to the K this weekend, watching the Royals and the Athletics, they're celebrating the 2014 team, or you're going to wait till next week when you can catch the Royals and the Tigers, believe it lines up that Cole Reagans and Tarek Skubal are going to face each other in Game 2 of that series, I think it is. Might be Game 3, because it might be a 4-game series now that I think about it. But anyways, you're thinking about buying tickets, do not waste any time and head over to Game Time and buy your tickets there. It doesn't matter if you're going with one person, you're going with a group of people, you're going with a couple. It's just so easy to use. I love the deals they have out there, how simple they make it, and how easy it is to obtain your tickets. So here's what you need to do. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off on your first purchase. Those terms apply. So again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB, LOCKEDONMLB, for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. We have discussed the offense, I think, a little bit in length, and we've discussed this rotation, and it's been a little bit since we've gone over the bullpen. And to me, the bullpen, it has its strengths. Okay, I think that they've solidified the back 3 guys of the bullpen, the high leverage guys, Angel Serpa, John Schreiber, James McArthur. Those, to me, have been the 3 best options. In a 1-run scenario, you're trying to hold on to that lead in the final 3 innings. Those would be the 3 guys that I go to. Will Smith has suddenly caught fire and been very much closer to what the Royals thought he could be when he had the closer's job to begin the year than he was at the beginning, which was giving up 2 runs, giving up 4 runs, and blowing multiple saves. He's starting to come back into form. Chris Stratton had a really good homestand about 2 homestands ago and then imploded a little bit on the road. And maybe that's been the difference ever since that game in Detroit. You just don't trust Chris Stratton as much. Nick Anderson hasn't really been good at all. Matt Sauer hasn't been very good. And you start to wonder, when is the move going to be made? When is the transaction going to be made for the bullpen? I mean, Tyler Duffy's still there. Alec Marsh going on the injured list shake things up a little bit, or it did shake things up. Jonathan Bowen had a start. Colin Selby was up in the bullpen at some point. But I'm wondering when that time will be of making a permanent move. Because as we've discussed, the Royals don't have a lot of power in that bullpen. They don't have the high velocity swing and miss stuff. Like some of their guys in the rotation, they are pitching to soft contact. That is the name of the game. And what I've come to the conclusion of is, if that bullpen is going to reach a level of top 5 in the American League, really being able to lock down some of those close games or keep things tied or keep the Royals within striking distance, they're going to need the swing and miss. Now, when I say high-powered stuff, you can take it one way and say, well, it's the triple-digit fastball. Or you can take it one way and say, he's just got great swing and miss stuff. Who's to say you have to have a Aroldis Chapman type stuff to be a great back-end bullpen arm? I mean, John Schreiber's been very effective this year dealing with base runners, but a sub-1 ERA is a sub-1 ERA. James McArthur's had his moments, though he struggled with limiting the long ball over the last couple of outings. Serpa's got some of the better velocity in the bullpen, but not a lot of swing and miss. To me, an intriguing option is Walter Pennington down in AAA Omaha. He was awesome in spring training. He's been awesome pitching in AAA. His ERA is now below 1.4. He was used as an opener a couple weeks back, and I believe through 4 scoreless innings. He's got 39 strikeouts in 17 games, 39 Ks, and he's a reliever. He's got more strikeouts than Daniel Lynch. He's got more strikeouts than Anthony Veneziano, more strikeouts than Jonathan Bolin, than Andrew Hoffman, guys that were making starts for the Storm Chasers. That's how good he's been. And he's not a 21, 22-year-old that you need to worry about handling the moment. He's 26. He's a seasoned prospect. And he's not really a prospect at all on Major League Baseball's radar. But for your bullpen, I think it makes a lot of sense. And we discussed it in yesterday's episode of, Drew Waters is the hot talking point. He is the guy that everybody wants to see in Kansas City, or at least ones that want a change to happen. I think you can start it as simple as a bullpen move. Walter Pennington for Tyler Duffy. Walter Pennington, maybe if you send Matt Sauer back to New York. I mean, I think there's enough there to really help this bullpen. Now, do you really need 3 lefties in the bullpen? Maybe not. But I like the way that Walter Pennington is molding himself in AAA Omaha. I mean, he's not going to run it up there 98, 99, 100, but he's got a power slider, good breaking pitches that I think could complement this bullpen really well. Because the Royals, I think, have faith in some of the guys to bounce back. They had faith in Will Smith. I feel like they have faith in Chris Stratton. Maybe they have faith in Nick Anderson. But at some point, you need to try to assemble the best bullpen that you can. And we don't know for certainty that Walter Pennington or Will Klein or, even when they start pitching better, Carlos Hernandez or John McMillan are going to be the fixes. But I do think there's a point in the season where you have to evaluate what you have and if it's good enough to make a push. Because the Royals are going to need to have a top 5 bullpen in the American League to really make some moves. They can't have a bottom 10, a bottom 12 bullpen to make things work. The reason is the offense isn't good enough to have a bad bullpen. The rotation can be as good as they are right now. They can have 50 quality starts and have a couple of shutouts. And that's great to win those 2-1 games. But if you have a bullpen that falters and you have an offense that can't always put together consistency, you're going to run into some issues, some severe issues that are going to lead to long losing streaks. I'm not trying to say that Walter Pennington is this saving grace, but I do think he's worth a roster spot in the bullpen right now because there are some guys that I just don't know are going to have the best stuff moving forward. I mean, it's been a rough couple of outings for Nick Anderson. I thought that his stuff was going to play very nicely in the Royals bullpen. I thought Matt Sauer was fine in long relief, but now you start to wonder, is he even that valuable for long relief? You look at, even guys like Chris Stratton kind of losing that high leverage spot. Can you get some extra help from somebody that baseball hasn't seen yet, which is Walter Pennington? I mean, he's doing enough right now in Omaha to at least be worth a look. And maybe the Royals are waiting. There's no need to rush it. They like the guys they have in the bullpen. But I would love to see Walter Pennington in this bullpen. I think he's pitching well enough to earn a shot. And maybe we'll see this homestand, or maybe we won't see it till the dog days of summer. Okay, we'll take our final break of the show. When we come back, let's take a quick preview of this upcoming series against the Oakland Athletics. That's coming up on Locked On Royals. You are tuned into Locked On Royals on the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jack Johnson. You can find me on Twitter or X at JohnnyJ_15. Before we move on to our final segment, a quick shout out to Locked On Sports Today. It's a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you canvas analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Also, want to let you know about FanDuel. And with FanDuel, it's no better time to get in on that action. It's a winner-take-all time, in the NBA and NHL, and FanDuel's giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and more. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make every playoff shot count. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Well, the Royals will be welcoming in the Oakland Athletics Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It's the reunion, if you will, for the 2014 squad. They were at Union Station earlier this afternoon. I was at work, so I didn't get the chance to head on down there. But if you were out there and you got to mingle with some of the players or just catch the atmosphere, I would love to hear about it on YouTube or on our Twitter handle here, at least my Twitter handle at JohnnyJ_15. But it'll be a lot of fun. There's a reason they picked this weekend, the Oakland Athletics being the opponent, and that very famous and beloved game here in Kansas City, the 2014 wild card game. It'll be awesome to see. I think Herrera, Davis, and Holland are all throwing out the pitches Friday, Saturday, and Sunday in order. Should have a really big crowd this weekend, or at least my opinion is going to be a really big crowd, and hopefully a sweep, because you are taking on an Oakland team that is struggling at this point in time and kind of reverting back to what we all thought Oakland was going to be this year. And the reason Oakland has been much better than expected, and they're still 7 games below 500, it's because of their bullpen, for one. That bullpen is not a group you want to see trailing by, even as much as 1 run. You don't want to see Mason Miller in the 9th inning because you're not going to hit him. And I do hope to see Mason Miller at least once in this series, but I hope it's when the Royals are up by a couple and he's just getting some work in. I do not want to see the Royals facing him trailing in the bottom of the 9th inning, because they're not going to win that game. I'll go out there right now. That is the best pitcher, relief pitcher in baseball right now. That's the best closer, in my opinion, with the best pure stuff out there. I mean, he's virtually unhittable. And Oakland did a really good job early on this year, more so in April than in May, of just being able to hang on to some of those 1-run leads, 2-run leads. They had some big wins in Baltimore. They had a series win in Detroit. They competed well against the Yankees in the Bronx. So this is not a team that you saw last year, which also took a series in Kansas City and Oakland from the Royals. So that told you where both of those teams were at in 2023. But it's one that you can't just scoff at. Oakland is not going to have many players you recognize. Brent Rooker, who was a former Royal for a cup of coffee, if that, in 2022. He was an all-star last year and has been really damn good this year, and could be an all-star again alongside Mason Miller for the Athletics representatives. It's just not a team that I think you can take lightly, sleepwalk through. They are not a team that's playing well, but as I think everybody knows in baseball, just because they're not playing well doesn't mean you can just walk all over them. They could be very pissed off and want to prove something on the road and spoil a 2014 reunion weekend for Royals fans. I mean, you are facing Oakland and Detroit, in my opinion, at good times. They're both playing bad baseball. But one or two things is going to happen. Either one, that bad baseball is going to continue. You are going to see bad play, bad offense, bad pitching from Oakland. And the starters the Royals face are not going to be anything to, write home about. Nothing special. That bullpen's great. The offense is going to have some guys in that lineup that catch your eye, but for the most part, it's not a group that is filled with a bunch of stars. And Detroit also just came off a series loss to the worst team in baseball in the Miami Marlins. Now that Colorado has won 7 in a row and the White Sox are playing better baseball, like these two teams are just down in the dumps a little bit. But those down in the dumps teams can always catch fire at a time you're least expecting it. Well, this losing streak or this bad play is going to end at some point. Why not this series? Now, the Royals aren't playing fantastic baseball. This offense has struggled. We discussed that a little bit in yesterday's episode. The bullpen has had its issues. This is just a get-right series for me. I think this is a homestand that, of course, you want to take a winning record with you. You want to move back onto the road feeling good after a quick homestand against the A's and Tigers. But I think one of these series needs to be a sweep. I think really beating up on Oakland or really beating up on Detroit would be very, very important moving into the last half of May. Because once you hit June, once this team hits June, it's going to really stiffen up for competition. You're going to see the Yankees. You're going to see the Guardians. You're going to see the Mariners. I believe you see the Dodgers in June as well. It's either June or July. You are going to see some heavyweight boxers in the month of June. So when you get this stretch of playing two teams, not playing good baseball, you got to capitalize. You cannot let this series be their get-right series. The Royals would hopefully come out tomorrow. They're up for 4 runs in the first. Cole Reagans bounces back from a bad start in Anaheim. Seth Lugo takes the ball, quality start on Saturday, and Brady Singer rounds it out with a sweep on Sunday. That's the hope. Because right now you're 7 games over 500. To enter that Detroit series, 10 games over, how can you not feel just absolutely enthused by where they're at? And then you go take a series in Detroit, you head off to Tampa, riding high. It's not so much a roller coaster anymore. You're just sitting at the top. You're looking down at the rest of the division likely. The Royals are in second place. Minnesota, you talk about offensive struggles. 2 teams in the Central are dealing with it worse than the Royals right now. Minnesota's been shut out for, I think, 27 straight innings. They scored in the first inning against the Yankees in Game 1, didn't score the rest of the series. Detroit got shut out in back-to-back games by Miami, who had the worst team ERA in baseball. So if you think the Royals just have all kinds of issues, there are teams in this own division that are having problems, that are not being able to catch fire offensively. And this is one of those series against a team that doesn't have great starting pitching, good bullpen, but not great starting pitching. You got to ambush. You would love to see some of your guys get hot and start playing a hell of a lot better than they have over the last 7 games. A lot of players in this lineup need a get-right series. Bobby Witt Jr. does. Michael Massey does. Melendez does. Velasquez does. Renfroe does. Isbell does. Everybody but Salvador Perez, maybe Michael Garcia. Right now, everybody else is in a little bit of a slump or a really big slump. And Oakland is the team you got to capitalize on. These series, these homestands, they don't just pop up all the time. You don't get 2 teams back-to-back playing bad baseball very often. And when you know how strong that schedule is going to be in June, you have to jump all over this. It has to start tomorrow. It has to start with a great start from Cole Reagans and the offense breaking out of its shell a little bit. But time will tell. Tomorrow, 7:10 first pitch, or might be 7:15. Let me double check on that so I don't lead anybody astray here. I know at some point the time change switches again, but it looks like tomorrow, 6:40. So I was wrong. I would have had everybody tune in late and missed the first couple innings. 6:40 first pitch. It'll be Cole Reagans going for Kansas City, hoping to bounce back from that start that he had in Anaheim. Well, that's going to do it for another edition of Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. I've been your host, Jack Johnson. You can always follow me on Twitter at JohnnyJ_15. Before we say goodbye, one last shout out to Locked On Sports Today. It's here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available for free on the Fire TV Channels app. Tomorrow, it's going to be completely dedicated to listeners, as we'll have another Mailbag Friday. But until then, you take it easy, Kansas City.